first, let me talk a little bit about Scorpio season, okay? So this is the fixed water. Fixed water is like ice. It's solid. It is harder. I hate using the word harder. It is more complicated to move, to access, and this is why Scorpio season is also, if you think about frozen water or memory like cellular memory, it's harder to access, but when you do, there's so much wisdom and there's so much magic in it. So Scorpio season is the second water sign, and it's ruled by the scorpion. And if we think about the scorpion's medicine, we also think about poison, and we think about how anything in excess can be poison. And sometimes, like homeopathy, a tiny bit of poison can heal. So it's really important to consider. And if you're interested in more on Scorpio season, I have a reel that I'll post in my story that you can look more about Scorpio season. But it's one of my favorite seasons, and it's one of the hardest seasons for me. It is my fourth house, third to fourth. And, you know, it's a very internal time for many people. If you have Scorpio placements, that's even more so. And yet the access to magic, the access to our ancestors, to the divine, to guides and angels and animal medicine, all the things is here for us. So hi, if you're just joining me. Okay, we're going to be talking about the new and full moon now. So the new moon is in Scorpio, and it is November 4th. It's coming up. I'll have a whole separate video just talking about that. But for now, I want to share that this Scorpio new moon is opposing Uranus. So the new moon is at 12 degrees, and Uranus is, I have to move this for a second. Uranus is also at 12. It's also at 12 degrees, so it's exactly to the degree opposing Uranus. Uranus is taking a longer journey in Taurus for 7 years. Looking at where that is in your chart can be really helpful because it is, change. It's whatever's going on there is like the area in your life where you're experiencing the most changes, shifts, sudden ahas, awakenings, and then any planets or placements you have there as well, along with anything that it's aspecting in your chart. So if you have a lot of fixed energy or a lot of earth energy, you're going to be experiencing this. Fixed signs are the fixed signs are Taurus, Leo, Scorpio, and Aquarius. So it's really interesting to look at your own chart. You have all the signs in your chart. However, many of us have more of one thing than another. If you do have a lot of earth energy, then you're going to be feeling this more than others as well. So that is Uranus in Taurus, okay? And then the fact that it's exactly opposing this full moon in the sign that is the deep, deep knowledge and wisdom, magic, occultism. It's an active aspect for a new moon. Typically, not always, but typically new moons are restful. We're setting intentions. We're very internal, very like into our senses and things like that. Now, this is true for this moon in terms of our senses are really activated. So we want to be aware of, taking good care of our sights and sounds, taking good care of our spaces. So this new moon that's on November 4th is exactly opposing Uranus, which makes it more active. So typically at a new moon, we're slowing down and things are just like you're sowing the seeds in the darkness. But this moon is very active, and it's setting the stage for eclipse season. It's the introduction into eclipse season on November 4th. And because the eclipse will be in the sign of Taurus, Uranus opposing this new moon means that we have to be open and willing and wanting the change in our Taurus house. So wherever your Taurus sign, the sign Taurus is in your chart, is asking for massive, dramatic change. And we have to be open to receiving. Another thing about Taurus is it's very Venusian, it's very feminine. And so the same with Scorpio is feminine. That is the receptivity. If we are rigid, if we are just like in action and in giving mode, we are not open to receiving. So we really want to look at where we need to move into the receptive mode more. Okay, so if you're just joining me, I'm talking about the new moon, November 4th, and then the full moon is a lunar eclipse on November 19th. Okay, there's a couple other things I want to mention first before we move on to that with this new moon. The new moon has this longer thing that's happening between Mars and Saturn. Mars and Saturn are squaring each other. Saturn, who has just gone direct in Aquarius, has a lot more discipline to create for us in our Aquarius house. So wherever your Aquarius house is, that's another 18 months or so, maybe a little bit less, of just dramatic discipline, structure, change in the way that we need to organize ourselves and move about the world. So that's happening in your Aquarius house. And then Mercury is at the end of Libra. And if we think about this whole Mercury retrograde that we went through that was in Libra, the fact that Mercury is wrapping up at the time of this new moon, its journey in Libra is showing us a cycle wrapping up and needing to really let the past go to the past. Let bygones be bygones. It's time to move on. So wherever you're still holding on, hi, if you're just joining me, wherever you're still holding on, wherever you're still on repeat, in the rewind and repeat and replaying, any kind of those things that are happening for you, it's really the time to let it go. And for a lot of us, that requires us unhooking from the drama of things, unhooking from the trauma drama. So that's all in Divine Alchemy, which is a longer, journey with me. If you're interested in that, you can let me know. But so then Mercury is also creating this interesting aspect to Saturn, creating that. It's a looser square, but still a square. So when we have Saturn squaring at a new moon, it can feel a little bit more heavy than a typical new moon. Like I said, new moons are typically, a lighter energy than a full moon, but more internalized. Where this one, we might see external new laws and regulations or government control or sudden shifts and changes in our environment or things coming to, a head with certain situations. So there is this T-square. Let's see, because, Saturn really, Saturn's at 7. So it's 5 degrees off. So some astrologers would say that's too big of an orb to even count. But I think it is creating this T-square energy. And so the resolving point for this new moon to lean into would be your Leo house. So wherever Leo is in your chart for the new moon, that's where you can kind of look to for where you want to set intention around what is fun for you. What is your why? What is your mission? What is your desire? What would you like to feel more of? What would you like to initiate more of in your life? Because that Leo house is going to show you, wherever it is in your house, in your houses, is going to show you where to lean into at the new moon. And honestly, this carries through the whole eclipse cycle. So leaning into the Leo energy, the fire, transformation, the courage, the creativity, all of those things are Leo traits that can be called upon at this new moon and beyond. Okay, so that's what I want to say about the new moon. Moving on to the full lunar eclipse on November 19th. This is at 27 degrees of Taurus. So literally we start, the new moon is at 12 and then the full moon eclipse is at 27. So since Uranus is involved in that new moon, Taurus is showing up throughout this whole eclipse cycle, which is interesting because we still have the North Node in Gemini. And really the way that we tell time with the eclipses is that North and South Node. And so the North and South Nodes are going to change signs in January 2022. If you haven't ordered your planetary planner, this is a good time to do so that you'll have all these dates and all the information and all the journaling prompts that go along with it. But in order to really understand this transition, whenever we have eclipses that are in a transitionary time, so we're transitioning from the North Node moving from Gemini, which has to do with communication, not knowing who to believe, not knowing which way to look, not knowing up from down, media, medical systems, it's going to feel so good in one way and weird in another way. We're going to have some weird things because weird is the word. Weird and shocking things come up with the North Node in Taurus because it's going to come across and over to Uranus in Taurus. So that's massive for 2022 and 2023. But before I even go there, the fact that we still have this last eclipse having to do in Gemini, the moon is in Taurus, but since the North Node is still in Gemini, it's bringing up where the transition between Taurus and Gemini happens. And in that transitionary process, at the end of Taurus season, moving into Gemini season is where you've grown too big for your britches. It's like whatever you're nourishing, you're pulling up all this energy from the earth. Your plants are growing so big that they need to go into a new pot. And in order to take them into the new pot, you have to uproot them. And you have to trust and know that they're strong enough to make it to the new pot. And we all know that sometimes shit can go wrong, like sometimes you break a little root off and then the plant just doesn't do its thing anymore. And other times, and this is where we really want to focus, other times it can seem like you've killed the plant. And then it grows back even stronger, even brighter, even bigger. And so this process of uprooting and trusting and knowing that you can get bigger, that you can spread out more, that's kind of the energy of this lunar eclipse. However, we have another T-square highlighted at this eclipse. And so just so you know, this is the first time I'm looking at the chart, so that's why I'm like having my own reactions. So that is between Jupiter, which is at, it's at 24 degrees. It's ending its cycle in Aquarius, which for those of you that don't know, I know because I was very much paying attention to the astrology and most of my clients come from Instagram. So I know that on that day, December 21st, when we had the conjunction between Saturn and Jupiter in Aquarius in the first degree, so I just moved in, that was the day that Instagram started putting on a lot of different regulations and a lot of different things that made people feel, I can't even say the word. Honestly, if I put the word, the F word, F-R-E-E, in any of my posts, the algorithm just boots it out. I get like 3 likes on something. Whereas if I monitor that, then that doesn't happen. So it's really interesting to see Jupiter coming to its end of that cycle about a year later. And it will be moving into Pisces soon here. But its last hurrah is at this lunar eclipse. And again, its last hurrah is at the lunar eclipse, but thankfully Saturn isn't conjunct Jupiter. So the expansive quality of Jupiter is the thing that's getting a harsh aspect to, a harsh focus to, but Jupiter on its own is a very, very benefic planet. And so the fact that the sun and the moon are creating this T-square with Jupiter, it actually can bring really unexpected blessings, really unexpected manifestations, things coming to light that show us what happens when Jupiter and Saturn come together. There's all this crazy weird restriction and expansion. So now that we're coming back around, that Jupiter moving away from Saturn, it's free to kind of just show us what we've been through this last year and show us ways to move forward. Hi, if you're just joining me. So I'm talking about the astrology with the lunar eclipse on November 19th. It's at 27 degrees of Taurus. And then, of course, the sun is going to be at 27 degrees of Scorpio. So you really want to look to those degrees those end degrees, I would just say, look at your fixed houses. From November 4th to November 19th and beyond, look at your fixed houses because they're getting aspected like what's up, and it's really important to know what's happening where. If you want more information in this area, there's lots of resources. You can reach out to me and I will send you a couple of them, but you can also set up a full chart reading with me. Okay. Yeah, I mean, there's so much I could say. There's so much happening in Scorpio as well. So we have Mars in Scorpio, which Mars is like the original ruler of Scorpio before we even knew about Pluto. And so Mars is intense there. We have Mercury then November 19th at that time in Scorpio as well. So there's just a lot getting kicked up in this realm of things that have been frozen for a long time, things that have not been able to move for a long time, getting like kind of shaken ajar. And I really think that metaphor of like uprooting a plant and like hoping that it makes it to the bigger pot and that it flourishes is really a lot about this Uranus and Taurus aspecting the new moon, and then at the full moon in Taurus really highlight the North Node at the very end, which is the beginning because the nodes move backwards through the sign. We have the North Node in the within 5 degrees, which is why it makes it a total lunar eclipse. Now that I say that, I'm like, I actually don't know. So where is, yeah, so at 1 degree, it's at the final degree. You guys, I didn't even know that. It's at the final degree of Gemini. And so it is within 5 degrees. So it's a total lunar eclipse. Lunar eclipses on their own are huge flushes of energy. I often talk about like, you know, a toilet that doesn't flush very well. Eclipses are like when you pour the water down as you flush. It's a horrible analogy, but it's exactly how it feels at a lunar eclipse. Things are going to get pushed out. Things are going to get flushed down, and it's super uncomfortable. So it's a great time to work with me. I have a free webinar happening at that time period just for you, Activate Shakti, and you just need to click in my profile to register for that. So that's going to be amazing to be in community during that time. And I expect, since I am fixed, that it will be an intense time for me as well. But that's okay. So let's look at one last thing. We also have Uranus squaring Saturn, which is the third time that it's happened this year. Again, I have other information out there about this square, but the fact that it's the last time, usually when it's the last time of a 3, which happens a lot, where we have a first one, then there's retrogrades, and then they come back. It's really the first one shows you, the second one teaches you, and the third one is like test time. So all the things that we say we want to change, all the things that we say we want to do, all the ways that we want to be in the world, guess what? It's no longer okay to push them to the side. It's no longer okay to like just do it another day. We're being asked to do it now. And so this is why, you know, Activate Shakti is going to be a membership program for 2022 because it's time. It's just time. That's it. So if you're interested in that, reach out. That's the last thing I want to say for now about the lunar eclipse. I will be talking about each one individually, so I feel like for now that's a good overview. Thank you so much for joining me, and I hope you have a great night.